Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott and I'm the Emperor of Stomaria. Today I want to discuss the future of Stomaria.
This is how nations are built and empires are forged. For every nation that becomes integrated into the empire, for every territory that we acquire, for every citizen that joins us, for every drop of water we collect, for every seed that we sow, for every watt of energy we produce, for every silver bar that we stamp, we are securing our future.
So before we get started, I did want to draw attention for those who are watching this video that my eyes are indeed very puffy. Now, I do not know what the cause of this is. I think it's some kind of allergic reaction to something. It's very, very painful, but I'm not going to let that detract from my responsibilities here because it's been over a month since I published a video for our YouTube channel. A lot of people have been inquiring as to why there has been an absence because this is the longest stretch, I think, since early 2021 where we have gone without publishing a video about something. And we have, as I said, received some messages, some emails and all the rest of it, just asking if everything's all right on that front. And it is, but it is always a struggle, I think, to juggle work life, family life, leisure time, responsibilities around the house, and obviously Stomaria itself. And this is something I'm going to get onto in a little bit. But everything is on track, everything has been progressing as we want it to. It's just that for the last month or so, I've had to refocus my priorities a little bit, particularly around the home. And that brings me neatly onto the change of setup that we have. Now, for those, again, who are watching, you will notice that the setup has changed quite significantly, in the sense that the flag of the Kingdom of Wayward and the flag of the Republic of Vesta have both been replaced with the flag of Stomaria. Now, the reason for this is twofold. The first is that over the course of the last month, I have been redecorating our home, and the walls are now almost universally a very pale blue. It's quite a nice colour, I have to say. It was actually Empress Samantha's choice in the end. I didn't actually choose it. I didn't purposely make the house blue to match Stomaria's colours. It just happens that whites and creams and blues have always played a part in the lives of Empress Samantha and myself. It's a very attractive colour combination. It even featured in our wedding. And this was all before Stomaria. So it's not a coincidence that the colours of the flag of Stomaria are blue and white, but you shouldn't be confused into thinking that we are basing our own decor around the flag. It's very much the other way around. Now, with that in mind, the flag of the Kingdom of Wayward and the flag of the Republic of Vesta did clash quite considerably with our colour scheme that we've introduced around the house. And the issue is that the setup that we have here is not something that's permanent, in the sense that I set it up and then I drag the flag poles and the flags to one side, but I never make the effort of actually taking them down, putting them away or whatever else. I just drag them to one side till I need them again. And so they are always a permanent feature within our home, and they just have to be the right colour to make sure it doesn't clash too considerably. But the more pressing reason that I have changed the setup with regards to the flags is because there was a time where we had 6 member states or observer states of the Empire, and had we continued to have the setup that we have, and we go on into the future, and we do get more and more member states becoming integrated into the Empire itself, I'm going to have to introduce so many new flags in the background that at some point it's just going to be untenable, and I'm going to have to change it anyway. So I think for simplicity purposes, we're just going to keep it with the flag of Stomaria, which makes sense because this is ultimately Stomaria's channel. It's news and updates primarily about Stomaria itself, as well as the wider empire, but it's primarily about Stomaria itself. It's all from my own perspective. It's me as the Emperor of Stomaria, rather than the Emperor of the Empire of Stomaria. Obviously, we do cover other aspects of that, but I think for the purposes of this channel, it just makes sense to have the flags of Stomaria present. Now, the other thing that you will notice is that I am not wearing the uniform of the Imperial Guard. And again, this is a very deliberate choice. I have worn dress-down suits before in previous videos, and it's the kind of attire that I prefer to wear, in the sense that this is what I will wear casually where I can. It's not something that's put on as such. But the reason I wanted to discontinue the use of the uniform of the Imperial Guard, certainly in the way that I have been using it, is because I think for first-time onlookers, it does present an opportunity for confusion, in the sense that a lot of people will look at this military uniform and they will naturally come to some kind of conclusion regarding Stomaria as a militarist nation or community or something to that effect. Now, don't get me wrong, the Imperial Guard does play a part within Stomaria, in the sense that a lot of people are familiar with the Imperial Guard, a lot of people are familiar with the uniform, the sabres, and all the rest of it. It's quite iconic and very heavily tied to Stomaria itself. But nevertheless, it does only represent a very small part of who we are. And our primary focus, as a lot of our citizens and supporters already know, is about trade, it's about commerce, it's about enterprise, it's about establishing a de facto nation which is not sovereign in a mainstream legitimate sense, but is nevertheless striving for that sovereignty. And we're doing so by attaining greater levels of self-determination and self-reliance through legal and legitimate means. Now, none of this has anything to do with militarism, or the military, or the army, or the armed forces, or however you want to define it. The Imperial Guard are primarily there as stewards for public events, as and when we have them on a more regular basis. And that has not yet come to fruition, in the sense that it's not been necessary to have stewards at public events, because the public events have been so small, we actually know the people who are actually attending these sorts of events. So that's all by the by. The reason that I want to change the attire is because I want to be able to present Stomaria as something that isn't militaristic as such. But nevertheless, when we do have formal gatherings or formal meetings and the occasion calls for it, I will not hesitate to don the outfit, don the sabre, and play the part as before. But for these videos, I think it's just better if it's just a dressed down suit, because again, this is what I would normally wear casually as it is, and this is what more people will be familiar with me wearing out and about. So that's the sort of the introduction to this video over. So let's get into the meat of it. Let's discuss what the plans are for Stomaria, what I want to achieve in the future, and how we're going about achieving it. So over the last month or so, during this quiet phase in Stomaria's history, during this downtime, I have nevertheless been putting plans together, putting a timeline together, putting a roadmap together in terms of where Stomaria should be within the next 24 months, that is to say by the end of 2025. And I have not only put these plans together and put this timeline together and put this roadmap together, but I've actually taken action and I turned these plans into reality. Things are in motion as I speak. Now, I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail as to what these plans are in the sense of how we're going to get to the point that I want to get to, because there are so many variables that I could discuss that it would really be too much of a quagmire for me to try to navigate it. And also, it is entirely down to me as to whether or not this succeeds or not. And so it doesn't really concern anyone else aside from myself. And so all you really need to know, the citizens and supporters of Stomaria, the question that I'm sure you want to ask is, what is the end goal here? What is Stomaria supposed to look like by the end of 2025? And the answer to that is twofold. The first is to acquire additional territory, not just territory as in another plot of woodland, or agricultural land, or whatever else. We want to be able to accomplish one of our primary objectives, which is to purchase land that, if it doesn't already have residential properties on it, will have permission to build residential properties on it, and to actually have a community, even if it's just a few people, living permanently on this land, working in Stomarian industries. And this will be a major milestone for us, in the sense that establishing a real world community is one thing, but actually having people living and working together on land that we own, that is what we want to do. That is our end goal, in the sense that it's not going to stop there, obviously, but we're going to be replicating this as many times as we can over the next few years, the few decades, the next few generations, and we will just keep expanding. But getting people to live on and work on Stomarian territory is the main goal here. Now, that to one side, what I also want to do is, to put it simply, retire. That is to say, I already have a full-time job. It's necessary for me to support my family, and it's also necessary to support Stomaria. Without me working, Stomaria wouldn't be a fraction of what it is. I wouldn't have the resources in place to actually push it as hard as I have. However, obviously working full-time detracts from my responsibilities as the Emperor of Stomaria. And after a certain point, I would like to be able to dedicate the entirety of what would be my current work life to Stomaria itself. That would become my job. And that is why I don't want to involve other people in this, in the sense that this is something that I'm going to obviously benefit from personally. And so it's not for the Stomarian community to support me financially. That's not why people contribute to Stomaria. They do so because they are supporting Stomaria itself. They're not supporting my lifestyle choices. And for me to be able to accomplish both of these at the same time within 2 years is obviously a very big ask. But it is, and I should stress, within the realms of possibility. I have already, as I said, put plans in place and set things in motion. It's just a case of waiting for things to happen the way that I need them to happen. And from where I'm standing, there are 3 possible outcomes to this. The first is that everything happens exactly the way I want it to, and I am able to accomplish both of these goals. I'm able to acquire the territory, and I am able to retire and dedicate the entirety of what would be my working life to Stomaria itself. That would be the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is obviously that neither of these things happen. I'm unable to bring about these quite radical and drastic shifts in Stomaria's development and my own ability to involve myself in Stomaria in a more full-time capacity. For whatever reason, it just doesn't pan out, and I just have to continue as things are. That wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world, in the sense that Stomaria would still continue. It would just be at a far slower pace, or perhaps it would be a few more years before we were in a position to do what I want to do. But the more likely scenario is obviously it'll be somewhere in between. Maybe the two primary, quite costly objectives I have in mind just isn't possible. Maybe I can only do one or the other. Maybe I have to still have a part-time job, and maybe the land that we get is not for residential purposes. Maybe we just acquire one or two other additional plots, which helps to generate revenue for Stomaria, which will help us propel to the next level, but is not exactly what we wanted. It might be somewhere in between that. And those are the three kind of outcomes that are within the scope of this the plan that I put together. But I would like to re-emphasize that this is all down entirely to me. This is as to whether or not the decisions that I'm going to be making over the next 2 years are going to be the right ones. And if I fall on my sword in the attempt, then I fall on my sword. That is just the way it's going to go. I will take full responsibility and full credit, I might add, for the success or failure of these plans that I'm putting together and the actions that I've taken to set these plans in motion. However, the optimist in me does want to stress that if this is going to come about, then over the next 2 years, we really need to get the ball rolling in the sense that we need to have everything lined up. If everything succeeds the way I want it to, if everything happens the way I want it to, then we need to begin considering what exactly this is all going to look like. Because it's all well and good saying we're going to acquire territory for people to live on and they're going to work in Stomarian industries, but then you ask the question, well, where is this land going to be purchased? What kind of industries are we going to be establishing? And I suppose more pressingly, who is going to be the people that are going to be living on this land? And the answer to all of these is, again, another major set of variables, which I don't have a definitive answer for as of this moment, because a lot can happen in 2 years. The people that I might initially want to have move on to this land, maybe in the next 2 years, they are unable to do so for whatever reason, and other people come along that are far more qualified, far more capable, and far more committed. Who's to say? The industries that I want to establish, be it an energy industry or an agricultural industry or some sort of manufacturing industry, that will, again, perhaps largely depend on the types of people that end up moving onto this territory and the skill sets that they have. And obviously the location of the territory is another massive variable in the sense that I could locate, no doubt, various properties, dwellings, land masses with planning permission. As of today, I could probably find this anywhere in the UK. But it's pointless doing so because this land won't be available or is unlikely to be available by the time I'm actually in a position to acquire it. And so the question of where it's going to be is also another factor to consider. And so even though I would like to have everything in place before 2025, the reality is until we get into 2025, assuming that we are in a position to progress as we want, it is still going to be a case of quite a last minute decision in terms of where we're going to buy, in terms of the industries we're going to establish and the people that are going to be working on these lands. However, in terms of the people, at least, I can start to go through the process of considering the kinds of people that are going to be moving on to this land. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love nothing more than for Stomarian citizens to be working on these lands, to be living on these lands. But if it really has to come down to it, I'm perfectly happy for members of the imperial family, who are obviously going to be Stomarian citizens themselves, to take that position. If I can't find anyone suitable, anyone local, anyone that's going to be committed to doing what we need to do, then I am quite confident that members of my family and my extended family will be able to take up the mantle. And it can go even beyond that. It might even be the citizens of other member states within the empire. So it could be Waywoodian citizens, for instance. In fact, I did have a conversation with King Raoul about this, about these plans that I've set in motion, and he's very enthusiastic about it, I think, it's fair to say. And he's already sort of thrown his hat into the ring and said that, if he can be involved in any way in helping them to establish what we want to establish, then he wants to get involved in that. I don't rule out in any shape or form the citizen of any member state within the Empire in filling the position that would ideally go to a Stomarian, but it's not necessary. As long as they're part of the Empire as a whole, they are imperial citizens. And, we're all part of a larger collective community. And sometimes people, sometimes Stomarians will have their own issues in their own lives going on, and that needs to take precedence. And so the citizens of other communities can step up to the plate. That's just the way it's going to be, and vice versa, for that matter. But as I say, I want to go through the process of really considering the right people for the right job, because ultimately we are going to have to prepare certain individuals to take up the mantle at some point. And this is something that I'm very keen to get started as soon as I can. But ideally, I think we will have to wait until at least June, July next year, because by that point, we will have reached the first stepping stone, if you like, on this grand plan journey that I have. If we have reached certain targets by June and July next year, then I'll know we're on the right path and have a good chance of accomplishing our objectives. So from that point onwards, I will definitely begin ramping up the recruitment campaign, I suppose, in terms of who's going to be utilising these lands on our behalf. But until that happens, I will nevertheless be carefully considering the options on the table as things stand. So if you've made it this far and you wanted to show your support for Stomaria, then please feel free to give this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.